regardless regardless of your race, ethnicity, gender identity, sexual orientation, ability or disability, all are welcome in this space. We ask that you make space for others, that you critique ideas and not people, and that you assume positive intentions. And of course, please participate to the extent that makes you feel comfortable, right? Videos can be on, they can be off. You can rename yourself in the video if you wish. And we'll aim to be accessible and describe any videos, any visuals, sorry. Okay, let me stop sharing. And Laura, I'd love to hand over to you now.
Okay, thanks so much. And I will go ahead and say my friend Liz is here, a former student, amazing now web designer, content developer, graphic designer, all those things. She's helping me maybe turn some of this haiku material stuff into learning materials, especially for younger people. So if you have ideas during the session about like, wouldn't it be cool if, ping Liz in the chat with your ideas and stuff, because she's here, yay. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. People who know me know I'm not the best at this, but let's see if I can make it happen. I'm going to hit share. I'm going to go to my Chrome tab. And it looks like it should be that tab. Not sharing tab audio, the mistake I always make. Is that working? Hello?
Yes, it is. Sorry.
It is. Oh, okay. Because I'm looking at the slides now. I won't be seeing the chat. If anybody can let me know if something comes up in the chat, I'm just going to jump right in so that we can get going. There are going to be 3 interrelated slide decks here, this little introduction. Then I'm going to share with you some haiku features. And then we're going to play a game with some haiku poems. This is a bit different than what was outlined in the workshop description originally, but for good reasons, because what happened was when I proposed this workshop, I really didn't know that much about haiku. Oh, wow, I have learned so much. And what I've learned is so exciting and inspiring. I'll quickly tell you why in 3 ways. Haiku literature is way bigger and more beautiful than I ever knew. Thanks to Sam's workshop on games last month, I think I have a fun way to introduce you to the dimensions, the broad, exciting dimensions of haiku poetry and the different forms of haiku poetry. And best of all, there is a global haiku community, which is just amazing. And I would not have been able to come up with this presentation without that global community. So I'm very grateful, very excited, and I hope you will be excited too, because it seems to me it really fits with so many of the themes of MYFest. So why did I propose to do a haiku workshop if I really didn't know anything about haiku? Because I love little things, right? So I work on Aesop's fables, 100-word stories, 6-word stories, proverbs, riddles. I'm working on riddles with Liz. So it was obvious to me that haiku was going to fit in with my interests, but I really didn't anticipate how incredibly well it would fit in with my interests. It's changed my life, people, discovering this community and this type of poetry. As a result of all the things I've been learning, I created a blog, of course. And so this is a ghost blog. It's the first time I've done a ghost blog. I really like it. And so I've been posting there a few times a week, mostly haiku resources that I've been finding, amazing books and people and organizations, and that's all there for you to explore after the workshop. I hope you'll want to explore, and I'm going to keep posting there ad infinitum. So it's going to keep on going. Very exciting. Now, the game that we're going to play, this is thanks to Sam Illingworth, who did a amazing workshop last month on games, specifically educational games. And you know, you hear that phrase educational game, and it sounded, I wasn't even sure, like, how do you make an educational game? Like, seriously. But what I realized is we can do this through a game, right? We can experience this haiku poetry together. We can learn about the features of haiku poetry, so that's the learning part. I hope that process of learning will not just be a rote, superficial thing, but will really deepen your understanding of the poems, and that you'll be inspired to read more haiku. There's lots more to read, and also to write your own haiku. So we're not going to be doing writing during go outdoors. So I hope to inspire you to go outdoors sometime later today and write yourself some haiku poetry. I put in a slide here, link to Sam's workshop, because there is a recording of it. And honestly, if you've ever been inclined to make a game and weren't sure how to get started, do Sam's workshop. Listen to that recording. The resources he shares are fantastic. And Sam himself has made so many games. So hearing him talk about that process was just really eye-opening for me. So that is available to you in the at the Discord, and then there's a link to the YouTube there in that slide. So the game that I started developing with Sam is called Know Your Haiku. That's going to be a card game that people can play in a group. But here we are on Zoom. We can't play a traditional card game where we're sharing a deck and dealing cards. So I invented a bingo type game that takes the same basic game idea that we can play on Zoom, right? But you can also just observe. If you don't feel like playing a game, if you're like on your phone and it's too awkward, don't worry. This workshop is totally experienceable as a normal kind of listen and participate workshop. But if you want to play the game, what you need are 2 pieces of notebook paper, 2 pieces, and a pen or pencil. That's all you need if you want to play the game. And what we're going to do is, this is a bingo game. If people aren't clear how bingo works, card and you want to make an X or a cross line or an up and down line across your card based on the numbers that are on the card. So what we're going to do first of all is make a bingo card sheet. Each of you is going to have your own bingo card that you're going to make. Then you're going to make a list of the features. That'll be kind of like a mini lecture that I'll give on features, and you'll take notes, learning the features of haiku, and then we're going to read some haiku poetry together. Look for the features. That's how we'll play bingo. And so the first thing you need to do is, I'll skip the solitaire version. This is for anyone who's watching the recording, is to make a bingo card, right? Heather found the coolest automated bingo card generator, but I thought, it's actually so easy to physically just make your cards. You make a big square on your notebook paper, and then you're going to do 4 lines across, more or less evenly spaced, 4 lines, which will give you 5 rows. And then you're going to do 4 up and down lines, which gives you 5 columns, right? So now we've got 25 squares. In the middle square, there's an X because that's a freebie, right? So that's already on the board. That's going to help you making your diagonals if you end up with a diagonal. And now we're going to fill up numbers on that card. I learned something really cool because I was curious how many possible combinations there are. There are 600 billion possible bingo cards. So right now, your brain at random is going to be selecting from 600 billion possibilities. It's pretty cool, right? So the way this is going to work is I'm going to slowly read out the numbers from 1 to 24. And as you hear the number, you're going to put it in a box on your card, anywhere on the card. Now, here's a little pro tip. If you want to make it easier to find the numbers later, you can put the sort of bingo pro tip. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to read out the numbers and you're going to write them on your card, right? Is everyone good for doing this? Who wants to do it? I don't hear any screams of protest. So I see, oh, I saw one of those animated thumbs. That's good. Okay, so here come the numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Okay, so now everybody has what I'm assuming is their unique card, because really 600 billion is a lot, right? So that is the bingo card. And on your other piece of notebook paper, you are going to just write out the numbers 1 to 24 just down the left-hand side. So that should go pretty quickly. And if you have lined notebook paper, there should just be room for that to fit really nicely on one page. Okay, and so this is for taking your notes on, right? And so I'm going to go over these features with you, and you'll just jot down a word or two next to the number for that feature, right? And that's going to be the key. Then we're going to look at some poems, look for the features, and you're going to try to get a bingo with those numbers. Okay, so now that we've done that, we're going to move to my little mini lecture. I'm going to switch slide decks here. Let's see if I can do that properly. Boom. Okay, good. Now we're on the haiku features. There are going to be 24 features here. These are basic features. Obviously, not every haiku has all 24 features. But what's really amazing about haiku as a type of poetry is that it's actuated from all these different possibilities, from these choices that you get to make. So it's a very tiny poem. But the reason it's such a vast genre, where there are like millions of haiku, is because of the way you can choose from these different features. So kind of like the 600 billion bingo cards, haiku's like that. You're choosing from these different formal features so that haiku are like recognizably haiku, but they're never the same as another one. Now, this is the global community. When I went to do this, I wanted to make sure I was using either public domain materials, for which there are very few in haiku and they're not very good, or Creative Commons licensed materials. I thought, okay, let's look for Creative Commons licensed materials. And what did I find? I found a project called the Living Haiku Anthology. And I've just scraped the surface of this. It is hundreds and hundreds of haiku poets from around the world who have contributed their poetry to this project, and most of them, not all, but most, have put a Creative Commons license on those materials for non-commercial reuse. And so I haven't even read all of them yet. There's so many, but here is my credits slide and another slide of all the different poets whose poetry I used to make this list of features and then to make the deck we're going to play with. And as you can see, it's truly international, and I can't tell you how exciting it was to discover this website. It's beautifully navigable, very simple. And so for each of the poets that I'm going to cite today, there's a link. Their name is linked to their page at that Living Haiku Anthology. So if you want to see more poems by a poet, you can do that. It's just a link away. Okay, so now I'm going to get into the features. This is going to be kind of like a lecture, but please interrupt me if you have any questions at all, because I'm going to try to go pretty fast through it. And the features are very basic, I hope, and simple to describe. But if you have questions, just put it in the chat or just shout so I can hear you. Unmute yourself and shout, that's fine, I'll hear you, and I'll stop and answer any questions. So haiku are short, right? Length is probably the most distinguishing feature of the haiku. But here's the thing. If you learned haiku in first grade, like I did over 50 years ago, you were probably told that a haiku has 5 syllables in the first line, 7 syllables in the second line, 5 syllables in the third line. Well, you can do that. And I'll explain why some people do that when they write haiku in English, but that is not a rule. It's a possible feature, but it's not the only way you can make a nice short haiku. So what I'm going to call feature number 1 here, this is 1A and 1B, and you'll see in a minute why, is 575. right? That's one kind of feature you can have in a haiku, 3 lines. And in Japanese, it's not 3 lines, it's usually 1 line, but it's in these metrical units of 5 onji, 7 onji, and then 5 onji. That's how Japanese haiku works and has worked for hundreds of years, but onji are not the same as English syllables. Sometimes 1 onji in Japanese is what we would call, or 2 onji are sometimes what we would call 1 syllable. 1 syllable. So a lot of Japanese haiku do have 17 syllables, but many of them have fewer. They do, classical haiku have 575 onji, but sometimes fewer syllables. And just to give you an example, you can find lots of haiku books that will quote Japanese haiku in Japanese along with the romanization and then the English translation. And so this is an example I found in a wonderful book called The Haiku Handbook. Brilliant book, really, that you can read at the Internet Archive, so I linked to it there. This is probably the most famous haiku in the world. It's by a classical poet named Basho. It does have 5, 7, 5 syllables in the Japanese, but you can see it's written in 1 line in Japanese because you can hear those rhythmic units in the Japanese, and I won't get into the details of why, but you can. Traditionally, a lot of English haiku is written in 3 lines to convey that sense, but this is not 575 syllables. Old pond, a frog leaps in, water's sound. That's one translation of that haiku. There are probably 100 different English translations of that haiku. Now in English, and so this is why it's called Feature 1B, some people do write 575 syllable haiku. I didn't find very many in the Living Haiku Anthology, but I found a few. And so here's one by someone from Lithuania. A wandering path echoes the mountain river, chasing its clear flow. Okay, so that's a 575 syllable haiku. You can have that feature in a haiku. But feature number 2 is a different way to look at the length of haiku. It's recommended by Higginson and other English translators who argue that the way to best imitate the rhythmic pattern of a Japanese haiku is to count your beats, to count the syllables or words that are emphasized in your English translation. So I'll read his translation again. This is Higginson of that Basho poem emphasizing the beats. Old pond, a frog leaps in, water's sound. So that's a feature of 2 beats, 3 beats, 2 beats. Here's another one. I really like this one. Lines of foam over and over, the sea writes its story. Now, what I like about this is not meter rhythm. It's a way of looking at the rhythm by counting the beats, but not saying dactyl and spondy and all that technical vocabulary. You articulate this as a reader. You see how those beats come out as you read the poem out loud. Another way to aspire to shortness in your haiku is to count your syllables and to come up with 12 syllables or fewer if you can, right? So this is not a rule. This once again comes from Higginson. As you can tell, he had a big impact on me, and he's had a big impact on the English haiku community. So here's a classical haiku by Busan, another of the really famous haiku writers of Japan. And here's Higginson's translation using that 2-3-2. Fuji alone remains unburied. The young leaves. All right, so unburied, it's got 2 beats. Unburied, remains unburied. Okay, so another common feature that you've already seen in these English haiku, this is feature number 4, is that it has 3 lines. Once again, it's not a rule. And you will find especially English haiku writers who imitate Japanese haiku writers who write one-line haiku. So I've got an example of each one. Here's a 3-line haiku, but it doesn't have a long middle line, but it's still 3 lines. April rain, my father bows before burning ghost money. All right, so there's a 3-line haiku. Here's a 1-line one. Spring light, tadpoles growing into their tails. Now, that author could have written that as a 3-line poem if they wanted. So you get to think about, like, why did she want to write it as 1 line? And I like the way it just makes it all happen together somehow. Okay, so now we're going to talk about haiku structure, like what's going on in addition to that length. And the 3 lines is already kind of hinting at the structure. Even though haiku are very small, they almost always have 2 parts. And in Japanese haiku, there's a set of vocabulary words called cutting words. They're kind of like verbal punctuation. You really can't translate them into English, but they're there in the Japanese haiku marking a break. And so these are kireiji, cutting words or break words. So in that frog, the famous frog of Basho, the cutting word is ya, and it comes after the first line. Old pond, ya. Can't translate ya, it's the cutting word. And you'll see that Higginson there has used ... He's used ellipsis, where there was a cutting word for old pond, ya, in the Japanese. Okay, so if you're looking at a Japanese haiku, you might see an actual cutting word. But in English, what you're going to look for is a break after the first or second line. All right, so this is feature number 5, a break after the first or second line. Sometimes marked by an ellipsis. In the garden, a lemon sways, warbler song. Sometimes there's no mark at all. Soft rain, a frog leaps from one leaf to another. Okay, so feature 5 was a break, any kind of break after the first or second line. But like I said, ellipsis is a possible feature. It's a possible way to mark the break. Ellipsis usually comes at the end of the line, but look at this. It could come at the beginning of a line too. I really like this one. Greek coffee, the bitter taste of our argument. And I could say a lot about how these breaks work and the idea of the pivot. I'm not going to get into all those kinds of details, but look at how that's kind of a pivot. The bitter taste, you think it's the Greek coffee, but it's not. It's the argument, right? So this break is a very interesting thing. Feature number 7 is the M dash. Some people really like to use the M dash to mark that break. So night rain, a broken umbrella in Buddha's temple. I've got these headphones on. You can't hear my cat yowling. She loves it when I read haiku. It makes her meow really loud, but you can't hear her. Okay, so there's the M dash. And what's going on with that break? Like, what is the point of this? Well, you're creating some kind of juxtaposition. 2 images, 2 feelings, 2 ideas. It might be a comparison, might even be an explicit simile. It might be a contrast. It might be an ambiguous pivot. There's all kinds of juxtaposition that can happen. So that's feature number 8. Looking at that structure and seeing some kind of juxtaposition. Everyone will like this one. Snowflakes falling. One by one, I delete unwanted emails. So cool. It's a simile. It's not a simile. You decide. You're the reader. But there they are, snowflakes and emails. This is a contrast. First, crocus. Last Christmas napkin, under my mug of tea. So first crocus of the season, last Christmas napkin of that season. Okay, so haiku minimalism. Part of the minimalism is just the shortness. You're counting your lines or your beats or your syllables or words, whatever you're counting. But there's more to this minimalism than just shortness. And one way to get at that is to think about what haiku do not have, sort of negative features. Very often haiku have no capital letters. Some people will capitalize the first word of a haiku. Some people will capitalize names, place names in the haiku. But lots of people don't capitalize anything. Like the word August here, not even capitalized. August flood, a sprawling meadow reflects the stars. All right, so no capitals. That was feature number 9. No caps. No punctuation at all. No period at the end because it's all just open, right? It's small, but it's open. And not even dashes or ellipses, just no punctuation. Her old hairbrush, a mosquito alights on its bristles. And this is that haiku about the very small thing, right? Very small. Mosquito alights on the bristles of a hairbrush. No articles. And some haiku writers will even leave out articles where you might have expected them. And this is just to achieve a kind of density, no empty words. Under owl wing prints, snowshoe hair tracks stop. There's a whole story there, right? And no articles. So a complete story in 3 lines, but no the, no a, no articles. Quite a few haiku, feature number 12, have no verb. Some people call haiku a poetry of nouns, so that even when there is a verb, it's kind of doing service to the noun. The nouns are doing the work. Evening drizzle, soft cooing on the rooftops. No verb. When there is a verb, almost always in the present tense. So no past tense, right? Absence of something, absence of past tense. So that's feature number 13, present tense verb. By the river, my rough dream drifts towards the sea. Okay, so those were all kind of structural and stylistic features. There are some content features that you often find in haiku. In particular, feature number 14, the natural world. This is not quite a rule in haiku, but it's close to being a rule. There's another genre of poetry that in every way is like haiku. It's called senryu poetry in Japanese. And so people who are very attentive to Japanese vocabulary, if there's a haiku poem that's about people and culture and the social world and not about nature at all, they'll often say, well, that's not haiku, that's senryu. It's not a hard and fast thing, but you're going to find a lot of haiku about the natural world. So here's several natural images from nature all together. Empty rice fields. The white of a heron turns into fog. It's almost like a painting, right? And there are a lot of connections between haiku and the visual arts. I don't have time to talk about that today, but there are a lot of connections, historical and in contemporary haiku writing. In classical Japanese haiku, there's a season word that's required in the haiku. This season word thing, oh my gosh, people, there are these collections of thousands of season words and books called saijiki. And I found out there are even saijiki, not just for Japan with season words, I found a saijiki for haiku being written in Oklahoma, where I used to live, that lists all the birds and plants and insects and weather events that occur at different times of the year in Oklahoma. So you can have your appropriate Oklahoma season word for your haiku. I found that at the Global Saijiki database, the Global Kigo season word database. Pretty amazing, right? And so you'll find references to the time of the year in a lot of even English language haiku. Whispering in the red fox's ear, snowflake. So that word snowflake is your clue. It's wintertime. It's snowing. You'll also have, this is feature number 16, time of day as another way to really ground the haiku in the present, in a specific moment. So clear night sky, beyond the moonlight, a glowworm. Sensory experience, feature number 17, all the senses. Sight, sound, touch, taste, smell. This is a sound one that I really like from a Nigerian poet. Whoop. After the muezzin's call, a market din turns off, shed by shed. You will often, obviously not always, find a first-person reference in haiku because it's often very much grounded in the poet's individual experience, subjective experience of the objective world outside. So you'll see I, me, my, mine, just a single word that conjures up the poet. This is a poem from Burma, right? Myanmar. Small talk. My patient forgets about the needle, right? My patient. Themes. This is kind of like content, but I'm trying to back away from specific content now to talk about these spiritual themes. Haiku poetry traditionally is very connected with Taoism and with Buddhism, Zen Buddhism, Shintoism also. That's less accessible usually for people who are not Japanese. But Taoism and Buddhism you can learn a lot about, and you can learn through haiku a lot about Taoism and Buddhism. So I'm going to start with mindfulness, which was the original title, I think, of this workshop. There's a lot of mindfulness in haiku. It feels like a meditation. You can be grounded in the same kind of mindfulness reading haiku that you might get when meditating. And I think Liz has been using haiku for meditation. I have been too. Spring, the first flower blossoms, looking up at the sun. Right, that's a kind of just mindfulness moment to me. One of the main teachings of Buddhism and Taoism is impermanence, right? Because once you experience a moment, you also experience impermanence, right? Because the present moment is always passing away. It does not last. And that sense of melancholy, of loss, of impermanence is very much at the heart of a lot of haiku. This is powerful. New moon. My hand moves over where once my breast was. I really like this poet from India. I have several of her poems, and like I said, you can click on that link and go to her page at the Haiku Anthology. Wabi-sabiing is a term from Japanese aesthetics. And I tell you, you start reading about haiku, you learn a lot of Japanese words because there's so many aesthetic ideas that are perfectly embodied in haiku, but also in other forms of Japanese art, like the tea ceremony and drama and painting, all kinds of things. Wabi-sabi is one of these words. I'm really not going to try to even define it. There's a Wikipedia article all about it. You can take away so many different meanings from wabi-sabi, a kind of natural simplicity, the beauty of the ordinary and of the imperfect, and appreciating things just as they are, right? Which resonates with meditation, mindfulness, impermanence. I thought this poem was just beautiful. Bulbul, the wind owns the song. And so bulbul is a kind of bird that you have in India. So simple. Along with that feeling of impermanence, of wabi-sabi, comes a kind of compassion and empathy, tenderness that reaches out to the impermanence and imperfection of the world. This is another Japanese term for this, mono no aware. I love this one. First day, the school bus step taller than it looks. It's such a visual there. No verb. Well, then it looks. Okay, verb in the comparison. There's also this thing called karumi, which is a kind of lightness or clarity or ease. It's very hard to define, but this was the goal, especially in his later poetry, of this great poet, Basho. So this is, to me, is about lightness. Dark before the storm, dandelion puffs, floating free. And then one last feature, humor. It's not all melancholy. There's a lot of really funny haiku, the same way there's a lot of humor in Zen Buddhism. And so I'm going to do 2 poems real quickly, and this is the end of the lecture part, by George Swede, this Latvian-Canadian poet that both have wordplay, a sense of humor. Creak, cricket, creaking. That's it. Creak, cricket, creaking. And then here's one more. Ant, haiku, my writing grows smaller. So if you do write a haiku later today, think about a little ant. Think about your ant haiku, right? So now we're ready to play the game. You all are now like serious experts in haiku. Is this working? Does anybody have any questions they want to shout out before we play the game and you apply your skills? Okay, I'm assuming people are ready to apply their skills. I'm so excited because, as you saw, a given haiku poem can have a lot of features. So someone might even bingo on the very first poem. We'll see. Okay, I randomized this deck. So Liz, these are different from the ones that you saw. And I hope we're not very many people in this workshop, right? We're just very few. So go ahead and unmute yourself and just shout out the features that you see so you can cross them on your bingo list and other people can benefit from what you find. So the poem is New Year's Eve. My new face stares at my old face. Okay, so what kind of features do people see there?
Time of year, 15.
Time. There we go. And New Year's actually counts as a season in Japanese haiku books. The ones that are organized by seasons, many of them are. They go spring, summer, fall, winter, New Year's, with New Year's as technically a season. So that's 15, time of year. So if you have 15 on your bingo card somewhere, and you should, cross it off. What else do you see there, anybody?
I see it. And juxtaposition, new face and old face.
Exactly. Contrast juxtaposition. And you guys are going for the hard ones. Don't be afraid to say, it's got 3 lines, people. So number 8, juxtaposition. You can mark that off. Number 4, 3 lines. 3 lines.
No capital letters.
No capital letters.
So number 9.
Number 9, no capital letters. And I do see an M dash.
Yep, that's in the chat too. M dash and also 2 parts.
2 parts, right? So the break. So we've got, this is what we have already, people. 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 15. Does anybody have a bingo? Okay.
And number 3, 12 syllables or fewer.
Good for you for counting the syllables. Nice 1-syllable words in English, right? And let's see, let's go to the next poem because that's a lot from just one poem. Isn't that cool? And you all can give me feedback about this. I would really appreciate it, but I have to tell you, when I developed this card game for features, before I came up with the Zoom version, it helped me appreciate haiku so much more because it just gave me lenses through which to look at this tiny poem that you might just read and move on and say, oh, I like that poem. But now I really look at them, right? So here's the next one. Distant shores, I swim in the deep waters. So what do we have here that we haven't crossed off already?
18, first person.
Yes, very much a first person moment. And, you know, people talk about sharing experiences through haiku. And I don't know what happens to you all when you read these or listen to them, but I do get attached to these first person people. Like the Japanese poet Issa, he's like my friend now because I've read hundreds of his first person haiku. It's really amazing. They're small, but there are these moments. Okay, what else do we have going on here? I see no punctuation. Number 10. No punctuation. And now the ones that are kind of harder to get, those themes down at the end. For me, these deep waters, to me, that's a mindfulness kind of thing, right? You're swimming in the deep waters. You're away from the shore. So it's purely subjective, but I'm going to count that as a 19. I would aspire to that in my meditation.
13
And
present
tense verb, absolutely in the present. And it would change the poem. I don't want to hear about how you swam in the deep waters. I want to be right there with you in that moment. I swim in the deep waters. So the next time someone goes swimming, go ahead.
I'm not sure about this one. 17, sensory experience.
You know, it's not explicit. And so I'm going to say maybe no here. If it had said cold water, you know, and it didn't somehow. And there's a whole approach to haiku, to developing your haiku skills, which I think is really fascinating. There's so much I could talk about that's different from just looking for features. Lots of people practice their poetry skills by taking existing haiku and changing them and just experimenting and treating each haiku poem as an experiment. You can do that with your own poetry, like the haiku workshops I've now been in, with the Haiku Society of Austin, Texas people. There is a haiku society here in my town, where people will write 15 or 20 versions of the same haiku until they hit on exactly the right version. Playing with the punctuation, the lines, each word. And don't be shy to do that. And a lot of the Japanese haiku, if you read it, it's translated anyway. You don't have the original thing, so you can get different translations, put them side by side, experiment, and adding a sensory word is something you can do, right? Oh, summer rain, rodeo cowboy rising from the mud. So what do we have here that we haven't had before?
All right, I think I'm still seeing the previous one. Oh, there it is. Never mind.
Yeah.
Well, this is one legit no verb, people. It's a participle, not a verb, rising.
Also no punctuation. Number 10.
It could have been rises. It could have been. But there's just something about these haiku without any verb. To me, it makes it like a painting, because paintings are still, right? I mean, they can suggest movement. You see moving things in a painting, but they're not moving. That's my take on these noun haiku. It's using a participle, which is an adjective, to give you that sense of motion, but it's like they're frozen in that moment, right? Now, there are other things going on here too. There's lots more features that you can look at. So in the game that I'm developing, the card deck game, there's way more than 24 features, people, and that's what makes it a fun game to play. But look at this, all those R's, people: summer, rain, rodeo, cowboy, rising from the mud. You're not going to find rhyme in haiku, but you will find all those other poetic devices of alliteration and assonance and consonance and sound play too. I want to say there's compassion here too. I love the idea that apparently he has fallen off his horse, right? But he rising from that mud, that's what happens. You're a cowboy, you get muddy and you get up. So I'm going to circle 22, compassion. You know, those last ones, those themes, you bring those as the reader to the poetry, because they're not going to come out in just a word that you can point to. And that's why I think it's so useful to learn these features and to see what kind of work you can do, that you have the opportunity to do reading haiku, that makes it, to me, so powerful. And I think this is why I love those 6-word stories. People know about me in the 6-word stories. My students love the 6-word stories too, because the reader has to do a lot of work. It's not all here. The poet hasn't told you everything. Just the opposite, right? The poet is telling you the very bare minimum. And what are you going to feel? You have to explore in the poem, in yourself. I love this stuff, people, as you can see. Anyone else see something going on here that we should circle? We've circled an awful lot of stuff. I think there's even a little humor going on here.
5 already? Agreed.
We did after a break after line 1 or 2. I'm betting everybody bingoed by now. Not that anybody's shouting the bingo, but because we're really getting along here.
Have we done 21, wabi sabi? Like
And
the
wabi
imperfect?
sabi. Hey, and wabi sabi is so in the eye of the beholder. But yeah, I think part of what I'm saying is compassion here could be wabi sabi for this cowboy. And even impermanence, he was on the horse and then he's not, right? So, you know, once you start asking yourself these questions about the human condition and existence, all these big questions that could go off in profound philosophical ways, they can also happen in every moment. That's kind of what mindfulness is about, right? So haiku can really help you see big things. Wabi sabi is a big thing in this little thing, this moment, this one moment of this one cowboy at this one rodeo. Here's more rain. Oh, this is Nika again. After the rain, from puddle to puddle, red rubber boots. Oh, I like that one. So we haven't had an ellipsis yet, which kind of surprises me. For the rain, let's do 14, natural world. That's one of these obvious ones we hadn't circled, right? But I want an ellipsis, people. I can't believe we haven't had an ellipsis yet. Oh, this is gorgeous. And we could debate, why is it an M dash instead of an ellipsis? But look at this. A deceased friend taps me on the shoulder. Plum blossoms falling. Wow.
Yeah.
So there's some impermanence for you, people. I'm crossing out 20. Really beautiful. And plum blossoms, cherry blossoms, they're beautiful. And then they just fall off that tree. The wind blows. And that tapping, I love the idea that this is sensory feeling, but it's
Yeah.
ghostly. So it's a feeling and not a feeling, right? But I'm willing to say we got senses going on here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. And now A, D, C. No, I was thinking this might be a 575, but it's not. Sometimes they are just by accident, not because the poet even intended it. I want my ellipsis, people. I'm going to click. Ah, it's another M dash. But this is gorgeous too. End of the road.
It didn't update yet. Oh no.
Here's what's cool. This is a place in Ghana. In Ghana.
Laura, the deck didn't update yet, and you froze for a
Oh,
second.
oh, am I back?
You're back, but I still see the deceased one. Now you're on mute.
Now I'm on mute. Am I back? That is, they are doing things in my building that's been messing with the internet. I'm so glad we made it this far. I'm actually just going to go ahead and stop there because we have some time for like questions and stuff. I would love to know what you all experienced. I recognize Liz's voice because I know Liz. So is this what you all expect from haiku, or was this not what you expected from haiku? Just go ahead and unmute.
I learned a lot. Like, I don't know. I had just a very high level understanding before. I think it was similar to what you described, learning in grade school or something. It's just like, oh, it's short, it's 3 lines, and it's 575, and that's kind of all I knew. So I really appreciated having all of these features. And then it was super fun to have the examples and get your bingos. I have 3 bingos so far.
There we go. Well, and
That was
did
just a
you
great
know,
idea.
Christina, Canada is like the global center for English language haiku poetry. It
I did
is
not know that.
huge in Canada. It is really huge. And I think there's all kinds of reasons why that's happened, but it is seriously huge. And so there are a lot of Canadians in that Living Haiku Anthology. I bet there is a Haiku Society of Canada that is bigger and better than the Haiku Society of America, which is pretty awesome. But I keep running into Canadians and Canadian books and Canadian journals. It's a thing.
Huh.
So there you go.
Very cool. Thank you.
Anybody else have
I
thoughts?
think I know I'm biased in a way, but I feel like using the game to help learn the features, because I mean it's one, and then writing everything out too is really helpful, where you're not just passively listening. That kind of connection.
I need something to do with my hands during things, and usually I doodle. But yeah, that was my hope. Gives you something to do with your fingers. Andrew, I don't think I know you. Hello, Andrew. Were you going to say something?
No, I was just going to add to the that there wasn't one way of doing it. I thought was very nice. So that the features had groups, and so you had different options for each of those. I thought that was very clever, so that you could get that across. That it's not a one way of doing it. And you don't normally get that when somebody else has written it and that's sent up as the perfect haiku.
Well, yay. I was inspired to do this bingo thing because I'd done a bingo thing for a keynote years ago. It was a very different kind of bingo application. But I've decided bingo is actually not a stupid thing. It's actually a way to kind of like focus attention and organize information. It forced me to select just the 24 features. which honestly was hard. Like I made it sound like it's all kind of natural and easy and obvious. I started out with like 100 features because they're really, and there's a very famous haiku teacher and poet named Jane Reihold, who has a notorious essay called 69 Rules for Haiku. And she calls them rules, not features. But I'm not the only person who's done this, who's tried to expand out all these different ideas and features and categorize them and classify them, even though a given poem is not going to have obviously all of them, but a given poem can have a lot of them. It's kind of freaky weird. I didn't expect that, to be honest, but it makes the game easy to play too, because you can get some bingos really fast. Like if you were doing this with little kids, this is not the features list I would develop for little kids, but it would definitely be possible to develop a features list for little kids, because you could put things like butterfly on the feature or something and make sure that you have, a bunch of butterfly poems in there. And it's kind of a joke. A friend of mine here from this Austin Haiku Society is publishing a book next month, but her editor said she had too many grasshopper poems in there. She could only have 6, so she had to go leave some of her grasshoppers out. So anyway, they have, things, material things, nature things that come up over and over. Frogs are everywhere in haiku. So I think we could make a deck for kids that would be really fun like that, where it would be some formal features like 3 lines that show up in lots of haiku, but also specific features. As you can see, I've been thinking about this a lot. I think it has possibilities.
I was thinking, while you were presenting, I was thinking of how you must have thought about it, and so thanks for that explanation, because it was, categories and lists and rules don't come across well, and this was a very clever way to communicate it without specifying it, because you can't specify it.
And I'll just quickly say the way the game deck works that with card game is that there's a deck of features, a big deck of features, and a huge deck of haiku that come. I'll be able to get probably like hundreds of haiku out of that anthology. And the idea is that you deal the haiku cards around. So you've got 4 haiku. I think it'll work with 4 haiku in your hand. And someone pairs up a feature and a poem. But if your poem also has that feature, you lay it down, and it's kind of like taking tricks and hearts. So it's like a trick-taking game based on this idea of feature mapping, but with a much bigger set of features and a much bigger set of haiku. I haven't been able to play that yet with anybody, because I need like people in person to play it with me, because it won't work on Zoom. But I'm really excited. I think it'll work. That's my hope. And the idea is that, once again, it's a DIY deck, because this is not a deck we can make and sell, because this is non-commercial use for the Living Haiku Anthology. But the process of making your deck, of writing the haiku out on cards and writing out the features, is so soothing and educational that I think having people make their own decks just on index cards will work fine. And then I've got a solitaire game that I play with the deck that I made for the features game. So anyway, that's all at the blog if you're interested in this. And like I said, this is all because of Sam's workshop. If people did not do Sam's workshop back in June on these analog games, do it. He makes it possible for you to totally imagine your own game and make it just with paper and pencil stuff. So, yay, Sam. Okay, any other questions or comments? Oh, well, thank you for coming, everybody. This was, I was so nervous about this because I'm so excited about it. And sometimes that's good to be excited. Sometimes it gets in the way of things, but I'm glad it worked. So thank you for coming.
Thanks so much, Laura. This
Thank
was really
you.
fun.
Yes, this was lovely. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Oh, go ahead, Laura. Sorry.
And there's a form for people to fill out with feedback. And of course, I'm easy to get in touch with. Fantastic. Yes. Thank you so much, everybody.
Bye. All right. Goodbye.
Bye. Thank you for solving my technical difficulties, Heather. So we had the internet go out only once, which is actually good for right now.